Hello everyone, and thanks for choosing this video to watch. So today I'm going to solve the f prime or derivative of f at x equals to -8 when fx equals power 2 of 16 over x minus root 3 of x to the power of 2. So if you remember, we used to have several different rules. In one of the videos I introduced them, and one of those rules in derivatives was c times u to the power of n prime, or derivative of this value. This is constant, n is constant as well, and u is a function. This would be c times n times u prime times, or derivative of u, times u to the power of n minus 1. You have to memorize this rule for this question, and also another rule that we are going to use is this rule, which is u prime plus v prime. So u plus v prime, or derivative of u plus v, is u prime plus v prime, or derivative of u plus derivative of v. So let's go ahead and solve this problem. So fx is 16 over x minus root 3 of x to the power of 2 to the power of 2. I'm going to add times 1 in the beginning part of the problem. So right now, taking a look at this rule, the c is number 1, the u is the whole thing in bracket, and the power 2 is the n. So if we apply this rule, the f prime x, let's change the color because I think it's not easy to read. F prime x would be equal to c, or 1, times n, or 2, times u prime, or derivative of this part of the problem. I'm gonna write it, times u to the power of n minus 1. U, which is 16 over x minus root 3x to the power of 2 to the power of n minus 1. N is 2, so 2 minus 1. So f prime x would be equal to 1 times 2 is 2 times 16 over x minus root 3 of x to the power of 2 prime. So if you have watched my previous videos, whenever I get to 1 over x, I change it to x to the power of -1. And whenever I see the root thing, I change it to this. So root 3 of x to the power of 2 can be written as x to the power of 2 over 3. And 1 over x can be written as x to the power of -1. I'm gonna use these two stuff and rewrite the problem. So 16 over x is 16 times x to the power of -1 minus root 3x to the power of 2 is written like that, prime, times 16 over x minus root 3x to the power of 2 to the power of 2 minus 1. 2 minus 1 is just 1. So it will be 16 over x minus root 3x to the power of 2 to the power of 1. Then, one step further. 2 times, in here, we have 16 times x to the power of -1 minus x to the power of 2 over 3 prime, derivative of this. So we can make use of this rule to solve this derivative. U plus v prime is u prime plus v prime. So in here, the u is this guy in here, and the v is this guy in here. So I'm gonna apply this rule. So it will be u prime, or 16 times x to the power of negative 1 prime minus x to the power of 2 over 3 prime times 16 over x minus root 3x to the power of 2. F prime x equals 2 times, for this part, if you take a look at the second rule, the first rule in here, it is exactly the same as the first rule. So the c is 16, the u is x, and the n is negative 1. So I'm gonna apply this rule like this. For the second part, 1 is the c, u is the x, and 2 to the power of 3 is the n. And I'm gonna apply the same rule for the second part as well. So based on this formula, it will be c times n times u prime times u to the power of n minus 1. So c times n times u prime, or x prime, times u to the power of x to the power of negative 1 minus 1, minus in here c times n, c is 1, c times n times u prime, or x prime, times x to the power of n, or 2 over 3 minus 1, right? Times the rest, 16 over x minus root 3x to the power of 2. Then let's find out the f prime x. It will be 2 times 16 times negative 1 is negative 16. X prime is just 1 times x to the power of negative 1 minus 1. Negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2. X to the power of negative 2 minus 1 times 2 over 3 is 2 over 3. X prime is 1 times 1 times 2 over 3 minus 1 is minus 1 over 3. So x to the power of minus 1, or negative 1 over 3, close the bracket, times the rest, 16 over x minus root 3 of x to the power of 2. Let's simplify it for the very last time. So it is 2 times minus 16 times 1 is minus 16, x to the power of minus 2, or negative 2, minus 2 over 3 times 1 is 2 over 3 times x to the power of negative 1 over 3 times 16 over x minus root 3x to the power of 2. So the question was asking us to find the f prime at negative 8. F prime at negative 8. What is it? So let's put negative 8 and replace it with x in here, right? If we do that, we can find the answer. F prime negative 8. It would be 2 times negative 16, I'm rewriting what I have, times x to the power of negative 2, x is minus 8, based on the question, to the power of negative 2, minus 2 over 3 times x is negative 8 again, to the power of negative 1 over 3, times 16 over x, or negative 8, minus root 3x or negative 8 to the power of 2. So f prime negative 8 would be 2 times negative 16 times this guy in here. You can write negative 2 in the power as 1 over negative 8 to the power of 2, right? Negative value in here can be written as 1 over positive value of the power minus 2 over 3 times in here. We have negative 1 over 3 as the power. So we can write it as 1 over negative 8 to the power of 1 over 3, right? I made the negative 1 over 3, the power negative 1 over 3 as positive power, and I changed the question to 1 over this thing. Then times 16 over negative 8. It would be negative 2, right? Negative 2 minus, we have root 3 of negative 8 to the power of 2. Negative 8 to the power of 2 means negative 8 times negative 8. Negative times negative would be positive, right? So this will be positive 16. Or sorry, positive 64. 8, negative 8 times negative 8 would be positive 64. So it would be root 3, 64. F prime negative 8 would be 2 times negative 16 times 1 over negative 8 to the power of 2 would be 64 again, minus 2 over 3 times 1 over power of 1 over 3. I can write it as root, like this. 1 over 3 goes as the root, like this in here. Then times negative 2 minus root 3 of 64. 64 is 2 to the power of 6. So root 3 and the 6 would cancel out and a 2 would remain. So it would be minus 2 to the power of 2. Correct? And 2 to the power of 2 is 4. So f prime negative 8 would be 2 times 16 and 64 would cancel out and a 4 would remain, correct? So it would be negative 1 over 4 minus 2 over 3 times 1 over root 3, negative 8. 8 is 2 to the power of 3, right? So I'm going to write negative 8 as this. Bracket, minus 2 minus 4 is minus 6, negative 6. So the f prime at point negative 8 would be 2 times negative 1 over 4 minus 2 over 3 times 1 over root 3 and power 3 would cancel out. Negative 2 would remain. Bracket, negative 6. F prime negative 8 would be 2 times minus 1 or negative 1 over 4 minus, we have negative 2 over 3 times negative 1 over 2. So the negatives would cancel out and make a positive value. 2 times 1 is 2 and 3 times 2 is 6. Bracket, negative 6. So this would be 2 times, this would be 1 over 3. So if I change the denominator to 12 to be able to add up these two values, the first value would be minus 1 or negative 1 times 3 plus 1 times 4, right? So I change the denominator to 12, and I should adjust both values times -6. So f prime at -8 would be 2 times -1 times 3 is -3, and 1 times 4 is 4. So it would be -3 plus 4 over 12 times -6. -6 times 2 would be -12, and the 12s would cancel out in here, so it would be negative minus 3 plus 4. Like -3 plus 4 is +1, so negative of +1 is -1. This would be the answer. So I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to my channel, and if you could press the like button. And thank you very much for watching.